Okay. Hello everyone, good evening. Am I audible? हाँ sir. Hello everyone. So all prepared for prelims? At the very outset, I would like to say that I want an interactive session, otherwise no point me just speaking out. Okay, so I want your participation as well. So I can see around 20 students. So before we start our discussion, just give me two observation. First, आप क्या expect कर रहे हैं कि in 12 classes में आपको क्या मिलना चाहिए, and second, what other than your expectations, how is your preparation level? Because see, it does not matter, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि आपने कितना पढ़ा है, how much you have studied or not studied for that matter of fact. It does not matter. On that day, everyone is on a level playing field. So ultimately, what will matter is how much you are aware of, how much you know, and how much are you able to anticipate. Okay. I believe that most of you have gone through polity. Anyone whose polity is still not completed, please tell me now. So I want to clear most of the doubts right now, because iske pehle ki we start our journey to understand or go through this crash course, I should be in a position to understand ki aap kitna prepared hain. Okay, because this is a serious discussion for, let's say, 12 lectures, 24 hours or more than that, I would say, right? I want your participation. Without that, I don't think this will be of any help to you. Okay, finish Lakshmikant 2-3 times. Okay, questions attempt किया है कि नहीं किया अभी तक? How many of you have gone through the previous year's questions? No retention of articles is not important. Number of articles not important. लिख लो अभी पे. UPSC, the kind of questions UPSC has started asking, it's more about depth. Okay, so at the very outset, I would like to highlight few points. I am starting this discussion based on an understanding. I did objectively Lakshmikant sir. Okay, I think fairly आप लोग में से बहुत लोगों ने लक्ष्मीकांत तो पढ़ ही रखी है, ठीक है? But our purpose, I'll put this very clear. What is our objective? Let's consider that this is a project. ये हम दोनों के लिए एक प्रोजेक्ट है. मेरे लिए प्रोजेक्ट क्या है? आपको पढ़ाना, आपको प्रिपेयर करना. आपके लिए प्रोजेक्ट क्या है? At the same time, to prepare yourself so that you are in a situation to attempt the papers. Sir, PMF IAS Polity course is better, or this crash course which has complete coverage. I am preparing for state PCS. See, again, इसीलिए मैं ऑब्जेक्टिव की बात कर रहा हूँ. जब हम बात करते हैं कि PMF Polity का course is better, so in the foundation class, I have covered things into 50 lectures. Do you think honestly कि 50 lectures में, which is equivalent to 100 hours, आपको लगता है कि 100 hours में जो मैंने कम पढ़ाया होगा वो अभी 24 hours में हो पाएगा? So the objective here is very different. We have 24 hours more or less, 12 lectures, 12 classes, correct? And my idea is to brush up your topics. When I say brush up, I mean you have clarity about the topic. Suppose करो कोई एक टॉपिक बताओ जो आपने न्यूज़ में पढ़ा है, करंट अफेयर्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से. Just tell me any topic which you have studied in the current affairs. So our job here is to brush up these topics and then also go through some of the nuances. when I say nuances, it means nitty-gritties of that particular subject or of that particular topic. This is done in a very elaborate manner. बहुत elaborate तरीके से किया गया है, तो इसका purpose अलग है, इसका objective अलग है. It is very different. And the purpose and objective of this Magnum Crash Course is very different. I am assuming that at least आपको चीज़ें पता हैं. यहाँ पे जो 50 lectures की क्लास थे वहाँ मैं assume नहीं कर रहा था कि आपको कुछ भी पता था. President asking Supreme Court questions, correct. Governor, correct, absolutely. ठीक है, आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो कि गवर्नर न्यूज़ में था, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट था. व्हाट डू यू थिंक, आपको क्या लगता है कि यूपीएससी किस तरह का क्वेश्चन पूछेगा? या अभी बजट हुआ कुछ दिन पहले, कल ही है ना, बजट वाज प्रेजेंटेड. इस बजट, क्या बजट का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से कोई लेना देना है या पॉलिटी से कोई लेना देना है? इज बजट एनीवेयर रिलेटेड टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? ठीक, गवर्नर के पावर्स, बिल्कुल सही. Yes, Ankita. Yes, Mohammed. What else? Article 112. Perfect. So, we need to understand certain nitty-gritties, and in the process, the idea is to, purpose क्या है, objective क्या है कि in 24 hours में I'll make you aware. I'll be honest with you. मैं आपको कोई magic नहीं कर दूंगा. I'm a human being, so are you. We are just here to understand the nitty-gritties of the different dynamics of polity. So what you will get here in these 24 hours, very quickly, an update of events. But क्या events important है? गवर्नर पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कुछ बोल दिया, क्या वो important है? Events खुद में important नहीं है. Can I make your camera view as the main screen? It depends on whether you are able to see the screen or not. Because don't do that, I'll tell you why. अभी उसको मत करो. But those events which are related, जो events हुआ वो खुद में उतना important नहीं है, but वो events से related कौन से constitutional provisions आते हैं या कौन सी authorities आते हैं. जैसे for example you mentioned about governor, absolutely correct. We have to study about various aspects related to governor. But क्या पढ़ना है, कितना पढ़ना है, because we are doing a crash course. So do you understand a compass, navigator? What is the purpose of a navigator? To guide. Our guide is the previous year's questions. So we will go through all the previous year's questions. Yes, to show path. और ये कौन करेगा? These PYQs. I have based these discussions based on the PYQ because that is the ultimate truth. No one can deny a previous year's question. And based on that, we'll try to analyze and understand कि futuristically क्या पूछा जा सकता है ना? So take these classes very seriously. Let's start our discussion without wasting much of our time. Sorry. Straight away, 2022. Just go through this question. If you can, I hope all of you can see this question. Prelims question asked in 2022. Let's try to solve this, and also try in the process while solving these questions we'll also understand कि purpose क्या है. Perfect. Question क्या है? Which one of the following statements best reflects the chief purpose of the constitution of a country? Now mind you, it's not asking about constitution of India. दो term आपको पेपर में बहुत क्लियरली मिलेगा. वन इज द क्वेश्चन विल क्लियरली से अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, बिकॉज यूपीएससी ऑल्सो वॉन्ट्स टू अवॉइड एनी एम्बिग्विटीज. सो अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, दिस इज योर वन टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन, टाइप 1. टाइप 2, any constitution according to any constitution. Type 3, constitutional process. We will see each of these. And type 4, if I write here, concepts. More or less you can divide your PYQs into these 3 or 4 type of questions. according to the Constitution of India, according to any constitution of a country, based on various constitutional process जो कि दिया हुआ है. For example, गवर्नर का क्या रोल होगा जब स्टेट गवर्नमेंट बिल पास करेगा, तो वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन प्रोसेस का पार्ट हो गया. कॉन्सेप्ट्स, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय स्टेट, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय कम्युनिज्म, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय सेमी प्रेसिडेंशियल फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, राइट, ऑल ऑफ दिस. So yes, what would be the correct answer here? It determines the objective for making of the necessary laws. It enables the creation of political offices and a government. It defines and limits the powers of government. It secures social justice, social equality and social security. Now these four options are very close to one another. ऐसे ही options रहेंगे. तो ये भी सही है, ये भी सही है, ये भी सही है और ये भी सही है. बट क्वेश्चन क्या पूछ रहा है? विच वन ऑफ द फॉलोइंग स्टेटमेंट्स बेस्ट रिफ्लेक्ट्स चीफ पर्पस. नाउ Praveen says 21D, 22C. So most of you agree C. It defines and limits the powers of the government. Very good. What is that term referred as? Any idea? इसको क्या कहते हैं? इस term को क्या बोलते हैं? When you limit the powers of a constitution, absolutely correct. Constitutionalism. So constitutionalism means that powers are limited. So can there be a constitution but yet not constitutionalism? What I mean here, okay, we'll take it one by one. So it's possible that a country has a constitution, उसके पास written constitution हो, but constitutionalism ना. And there are two terms, constitutionalism and constitutional morality. Of late ये दोनों term बहुत ज़्यादा न्यूज़ में रहा है. I'm sure you know. What is constitutional morality? UK? What do you mean by that, Sandeep? क्या मतलब हुआ इसका? क्या हमारे यहाँ constitutional morality नहीं है? Individual adherence to constitutional values. Perfect. Correct. Okay, see, ये भी क्वेश्चन मोर और लेस वही है. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल गवर्नमेंट मीन्स अ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव गवर्नमेंट ऑफ अ नेशन विद फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर, अ गवर्नमेंट हुज हेड एंजॉयज नॉमिनल पावर्स, अ गवर्नमेंट हुज हेड एंजॉयज रियल पावर्स, अ गवर्नमेंट लिमिटेड बाय द टर्म्स ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. Constitutional government, I think it's pretty straightforward, right? So there are three terms generally which you'll encounter. One is constitutionalism, other is constitutional morality, and the third is rule of law. Any idea constitutional morality या morality word constitution में कहीं है या नहीं है? Can we find this word morality in the constitution or not? Somewhere, anywhere. क्या किसी बहुत फेमस जजमेंट ने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी के बारे में कुछ कहा है? Nowhere. ऐसे स्टेटमेंट्स आ सकते हैं. A question can be asked that the term, जैसे पूछा गया था ना, the word political party is there mentioned in the constitution last year. That was the question, right? So similarly, a question can be asked, the word morality has not been mentioned in the constitution. Just tell me whether this statement is true or not. I'm telling you, the word morality is not mentioned in the constitution. क्या ये statement सही है, गलत है? True. Sure. Judicial innovation. किसी के पास और कोई आंसर है इसका? See, in the first lecture, as I've shared the lecture plan, the idea is to understand few terms, obviously which are there in the news, and also from the perspective of our exam, based on the navigator, which is the PYQ. Please remember, morality is mentioned under Article 25 with respect to the concept of secularism. As of now, just mention this, note this. And it means that the state can regulate certain aspects of religious affairs based on the concept of morality. और हेल्थ और पब्लिक ऑर्डर। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजंस इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, आर्टिकल 25 इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, बट आर्टिकल 25 में जो लिखा हुआ है वो इंपॉर्टेंट है। सो आर्टिकल 25 नहीं याद करना है, बट सिंस आर्टिकल 25 pertains to one of the most essential features of Indian Constitution which is also mentioned in the preamble, तो उसके बारे में पढ़ना पड़ेगा, सेकुलरिज्म के बारे में जानना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज यू नेवर नो कैसा भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, राइट। सो दिस वर्ड इज मेंशन्ड एंड नॉट ओनली इन आर्टिकल 25, और भी जगह पे मेंशन है, 26 एक्सेट्रा। ओके, सो गो डोंट गेट, फर्स्ट पॉइंट, डोंट गेट डिसीव्ड बाय द स्टेटमेंट। स्टेटमेंट से डिसीव नहीं होना है। थिंक, इफ यूपीएससी इज आस्किंग a statement, is giving a statement, there has to be a purpose, there has to be a reason. Okay, sure. I hope you have learned your lesson, first lesson. Getting back to this question, in a sense what does due process of law mean? अब ये दूसरा term आया, due process of law, because this term has certain backdrop and certain futuristic aspect also. क्या आंसर होना चाहिए इसका? 2023 में पूछा गया था। C. Okay. Bharti, why do you think C? क्यों लगता है आपको? हेमंत says B, procedure established by law. ठीक है, देखो ये बहुत नॉर्मल क्वेश्चन नहीं है, इसको बहुत इजी मत समझना है इस क्वेश्चन को, अभी बता दे रहा हूँ। A, सूरज says A, शानू says A, okay, someone says B, तो बहुत ही वेरीड आपका आंसर आ रहा है, A, B, C, नेचुरल जस्टिस, B, ठीक है। एक बार इसको भी देख लेते हैं। विच वन ऑफ द फॉलोइंग फैक्टर्स कॉन्स्टिट्यूट द बेस्ट सेफ गार्ड ऑफ लिबर्टी इन अ लिबरल डेमोक्रेसी? वर्ड्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट, प्लीज गो थ्रू द वर्ड्स वेरी केयरफुली। सी दिस वर्ड, सेफ गार्ड ऑफ लिबर्टी इन अ लिबरल डेमोक्रेसी, टेल मी, थिंक अबाउट दैट। यहां कमिटेड जुडिशरी, सेंट्रलाइजेशन ऑफ पावर्स, इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट, सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है एज अ कॉन्सेप्ट समझना। हम लोग जनरली ये समझते हैं प्रोसीजर सेंट्रलाइजेशन ऑफ पावर्स, क्या स्ट्रेंज, डी। So what I was trying to say was that, see, what we think is that prelims is generally based on facts, और you know, याद नहीं रह रहा है, पढ़े थे याद नहीं आ रहा है, no. Of late, if you look at the kind of questions asked by UPSC, the type, the nature of questions has changed. It has become much more conceptual. It has become much more depth. It requires much more your understanding in quite a depth. Now talking about safeguard of liberty. Now it is directly related to a concept of separation of power. The correct answer is separation of power. But we need to understand why. पहले वो समझते हैं, फिर ड्यू प्रोसेस पे आते हैं। जब हम बोलते हैं सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर, तो हम किसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं? What are we talking about here? कौन सा सेपरेशन, किसका पावर की बात हो रही है, किसकी पावर की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे? Whose power are we actually talking about? As per मेनका गांधी के जजमेंट, लॉ शुड नॉट बी आर्बिट्रेरी। ठीक, सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर अमंग whom, किसके बीच में? तीन ऑर्गन्स के बीच में, लेजिस्लेचर, एग्जीक्यूटिव और जुडिशरी। ठीक है, डू यू अग्री? इट्स अ वेरी बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट। ठीक है शान, यू आर राइट। आई विल टेक यू अ लिटिल फर्दर। सपोज करो एक स्टेटमेंट आता है, इन इंडिया वी डू नॉट फॉलो स्ट्रिक्ट सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर। आई एम राइटिंग द स्टेटमेंट हियर, in India we do not follow strict separation of power. Tell me, is this statement correct or incorrect? Second statement है, in India we follow separation of function. And third statement है, Indian separation of power, I am writing in short so that you understand, is based on balance of power between the three organs of the government. बहुत सिंपल सा कॉन्सेप्ट है, बट टेल मी इन तीनों स्टेटमेंट में थ्री ऑर्गन्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, टेल मी इन तीनों में से कौन कौन सा स्टेटमेंट सही है? आई होप यू कैन सी. Let's talk about the first statement very clearly. The first statement is correct or incorrect? This is correct. We do not follow strict separation of power. कैसे? I'll give you an example. इसलिए concept समझना जरूरी है. Legislature, generally we associate this with parliament or state legislature, right? Its general work is to make laws, correct? But does legislature also enjoy certain executive or judicial powers? They do at times. So we see that in India we follow separation of function. So legislature generally or largely has legislative powers, but they also have executive as well as judicial powers. For example, Speaker of Lok Sabha. Can we say Speaker of Lok Sabha has administrative powers to control the working of the parliament, and in the process they can also suspend members. Let's say we were creating chaos in the parliament, who are not allowing the parliament to run smoothly or efficiently. Yes, तो executive power भी हो गया. अब स्पीकर को और चेयरमैन ऑफ राज्यसभा को एक और पावर है, पावर अंडर 10th शेड्यूल, एंटी डिफेक्शन. So when they decide cases on matters of 10th schedule or anti-defection, it means they're acting like a tribunal. They're acting like a tribunal, and hence they're acting in certain judicial capacity. So they're also performing judicial functions. Do you understand this concept? Yes, quasi-judicial. So coming to the first statement कि जब power separate होता है, अब इसका anti क्या हो जाएगा? Suppose करो कोई एक body है, let's say body A. अब इसी बॉडी को लेजिस्लेटिव पावर भी दिया गया, एग्जीक्यूटिव भी दिया गया, जुडिशियल पावर्स भी दिया गया है. डोंट यू थिंक देयर इज कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ पावर हियर इन दिस बॉडी ए? है ना, इसमें पावर का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन. जहां भी याद रखना इस बात का, whenever there is concentration of power, there will be scope of abuse of power. Abuse of power वहां होगा जहां पावर ज्यादा से ज्यादा या तो कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड रहेगा या तो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन या एक बॉडी को डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर यूज करने के लिए दिया जाएगा. एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो अ वायलेशन ऑफ प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ नेचुरल जस्टिस, which we will come to. Yes, like a king. That's why a democracy is always better than a monarchy. It's not about just we the people. It's about separation of power, because the moment you separate the power, it means no single body or no single authority is supreme. There is always an element of check and balance. There's always an element of check and balance. ठीक है? Again, आप बोलोगे सर ये सब तो मेंस के कॉन्सेप्ट है, बिल्कुल है, बट द टाइप ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स विच इज बीइंग आस्क्ड बाय यूपीएससी ऑलवेज टेक अ स्टेप अहेड. अगर वो पीछे कुछ बेसिक पूछा है, बी प्रिपेयर्ड, इट कैन आस्क एनीथिंग मच मोर एडवांस्ड. कमिंग टू द थर्ड, इंडियन सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर इज बेस्ड ऑन बैलेंस ऑफ पावर बिटवीन द थ्री ऑर्गन्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. एब्सोल्युटली परफेक्ट. एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो, एंड इट इज, यहाँ पे हमारा सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर सिमिलर है किस कंट्री से? यूके से. ठीक है, वी आर मोर क्लोजर टू यूके देन द अमेरिकन्स. डू यू अग्री? आवर फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट is closer to England as compared to America. Let's say this statement comes, very simple statement. I hope you would agree. है ना? Okay. Is this concept clear? Why separation of power is safeguard to liberty? एक ही बंदे के पास सारा पावर्स है, वो लेजिस्लेट भी कर सकता, एग्जीक्यूट भी कर सकता, डिसाइड भी कर सकता. Obviously, liberty is threatened. Liberty is always safeguarded when there is separation of power. Coming to due process of law. इसके लिए थोड़ा बेसिक समझ लेते हैं, या उसके पहले आर्टिकल 21 पढ़ लेते हैं. कैन यू सी ऑल ऑफ यू? क्या आप आर्टिकल 21 देख सकते हो? बहुत ध्यान से देख पढ़ना इसमें क्या लिखा हुआ है, बिकॉज यूपीएससी विल नेवर आस्क यू कि आर्टिकल 21 में क्या लिखा है. पूछ सकते हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि नहीं पूछ सकते, बट उसका एसेंस समझना जरूरी है. इट सेज नो पर्सन shall be deprived of his life, first point, life or personal liberty. Liberty which is personal, which also means private, and hence the importance of Puttaswamy judgment. Privacy is now part of Article 21 and hence protected. ठीक है, life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Except, so this is in a way, this one acts as an, यहाँ के आगे क्या है, ये exception है आर्टिकल 21 का. Exception to what? Exception to life and personal liberty. It means कि अगर capital punishment का provision है, so does it violate article 21? Does the provision of capital punishment violate article 21? Tell me, बताइए. No. Why? Because there is a process, and where that process is provided, that process has been provided under our criminal laws. है ना, criminal laws में दिया है ना, वहाँ तो बोला गया कि भाई if you are guilty of so and so much offense, अगर आप ये वाले एक्ट करते हो तो आपको कैपिटल पनिशमेंट दिया जा सकता है. ये दिया हुआ हमारे लॉ में. सो द बेसिक, yes, भारतीय न्याय संहिता and the भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता, the new criminal laws. So the point being कि if there is a law, then it can deprive life and personal liberty. So write this statement that legislature, the parliament or state legislature through law can deprive life or personal liberty. Don't you think this statement is contradiction to Article 21? Yeah, both these concepts are contradiction to Article 21. How can this be possible? आप एक तरफ कह रहे हो और पर्सनल राइट टू लाइफ भी है, फिर आप कह रहे हो कि नहीं कैपिटल पनिशमेंट भी हो सकता, ऐसा कैसे हो सकता? How does this work? And what is the importance of this word procedure? Correct. See, when we talk about process, a process, let's assume, चलो एक hypothetical situation लेते हैं. हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशन लेते हैं कि किसी एक कंट्री के पार्लियामेंट ने ये पास कर दिया कि मर्डर करना इज नॉट अ क्राइम. ठीक है, मर्डर करना इज नॉट अ क्राइम. डू यू थिंक इट्स अ गुड लॉ? क्या ये अच्छा कानून है? बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. एब्सोल्युटली नॉट. नो सिविलाइज्ड कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड कैन से दैट दिस इज अ गुड लॉ. सो क्या प्रिवेंट किया? सो फ्रॉम अ, यू कैन से फ्रॉम अ पॉजिटिव लॉ पर्सपेक्टिव और फ्रॉम अ पार्लियामेंट्री लॉ पर्सपेक्टिव, टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग लॉ तो बन गया, बट उसमें कुछ इनहेरेंट डिफेक्ट आ गए. इट मीन्स दैट व्हेन अ लॉ इज मेड इन एनी सोसाइटी, अगेन अब आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, आई एम टॉकिंग इन जनरल लॉ. और लॉ कुछ नहीं है, इट इज बेस्ड ऑन रीजन. क्या रीजन है या क्या रैशनल है किसी भी लॉ का? कैन एनीवन टेल मी what should be the rationale or reason for any law in any society? एक ही रैशनल है, इनजस्टिस नहीं होना चाहिए. इनजस्टिस शुड नॉट हैपन. ओके, इनजस्टिस शुड नॉट हैपन. And from this point of view, law mainly has three safeguards to protect life, liberty, and property. Again, I'm talking from a very general perspective. Essentially that's the purpose of law. First, injustice नहीं होना चाहिए. दूसरा, these should be protected. But remember, no right is absolute. Yes, and all these rights are subject to certain safeguards. Okay, so when we talk about natural law, or in general when we talk about justice or natural justice, natural here refers to reasoned justice. It includes two things: that when a case is decided, it should be decided fairly, biasness नहीं होना चाहिए, and both sides should be given an opportunity. To present their case. And natural law, generally when we study natural law or natural justice, not natural law, natural justice, the principles of natural justice, generally we study as part of administrative law. Now you will say, what is this? Nothing to fear. Simply the way in which administration takes its decision. You are the future bureaucrats. आप जिस तरह से decision लोगे उसमें fairness होना चाहिए. Simple. And from our constitutional perspective, procedure established by law means the procedure should be fair. Earlier it was understood that whatever the procedure may be, the law should be made by the parliament. Procedure को उतना ध्यान नहीं दिया गया था. And this understanding was provided in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, erstwhile Madras. Supreme Court's narrow interpretation of Article 21 led to some serious implications. Court said that Article 21 is available only against arbitrary executive action and not legislative arbitrariness. Now, court ने क्या interpret किया? Procedure established by law in Article 21, which is different from the expression, American expression of due process of law. Hence, validity of a law that has prescribed a procedure cannot be questioned because law is unreasonable or unjust. Now, it is saying in simple terms that if there is a law and for which, if there is a process or a procedure which has been established or provided, if a procedure is provided, then it's fine. We need not look into or we need not go, हमें ये नहीं देखना है कि ये procedure fair है या नहीं है. Whether this procedure is fair or not, it does not matter as long as there is a law made by the authority. So this is referred as substantive due process, and this is referred as procedural due process. Now, based on judicial interpretation given in Menka Gandhi case, procedure established by law includes both substantive due process as well as procedural due process. Just remember this. So, Menka Gandhi, it says the above ruling was overruled and the court said that the right to life can only be deprived with a law that is reasonable, just and fair. And with this judgment, following rights are now part of Article 21. And these are right to live with human dignity, right to livelihood, right to privacy, right to shelter. So, substantive and procedural due process also expanded the ambit of Article 21. So, in this, in essence, the word due process of law does not mean equality before law, does not mean fair application of law, and it does not mean procedure established by law, because the word due process is much wider as compared to procedure established by law. Hence, the correct answer is principle of natural justice. Clear? Any doubt in this? So, due process of law is a wider term as compared to the term procedure established by law and has been given a wider interpretation in the Supreme Court judgment of Menka Gandhi. Now, since we also mentioned about principles of natural justice, so it has two elements. I have already told you. Rule against bias, that is there should be no bias. Let's say a judge is deciding a case of a multinational corporation और जज का ही खुद का इंटरेस्ट है, जज नहीं उस कंपनी के शेयर्स खरीद रखे हैं, डू यू थिंक द जज विल एक्ट फेयरली? ऑफ कोर्स नॉट. There is a possibility that the judge might rule in favor of that company. Hence, there should be no bias. I've just added the legal term so that you know. And rule of fair hearing means the other side, जिसके ऊपर केस है, उसको आप you have to tell them that why this case has been initiated, and you have to provide them with all the details of the case. This is the meaning of audio alterum partem, that is, no side shall be condemned unheard. So it says minimal requirement of natural justice is that authority must be composed of impartial person. Now, there was a very famous case, A.K. Kraipak. You don't need to remember the case, I'm just giving an illustration. Suppose करिए कि selection होना था, ठीक है? अब selection होना था किसी सर्विस के लिए. अब इस selection में बोर्ड में 5 लोग थे, ठीक है? The board members comprises of 5 people. ओके, वन ऑफ द मेंबर जो कि बोर्ड के मेंबर थे, ये भी एप्लीकेंट थे, ये बोर्ड के मेंबर भी थे और इस सर्विस के एप्लीकेंट भी थे. डू यू थिंक देयर इज वायलेशन ऑफ प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ नेचुरल जस्टिस? यस, ऑफ कोर्स. सो समथिंग लाइक दिस. दिस इज व्हाट इट सेज. दे शुड एक्ट, दे शुड बी इम्पार्शियल पर्सन, दे शुड एक्ट फेयरली and without prejudice and bias, and a decision which is a result of a nullity and the trial is coram non judice. Again, a legal word means agar aisa, if something like this is found, then the whole selection process, appointment process, trial process, whatever that process is, will be declared as null and void. And what's the meaning of this word, rule against bias? It strikes against those factors which may improperly influence a judge in arriving at a decision in any particular case. Therefore, the principle is that judge must be impartial, must decide the case objectively on the basis of evidence on record. A very famous case again, which you have to study as a part of UPSC, is that, let's say there is a member of a public service commission. Okay. So this member, it's a possibility that this member will be on the board for interview. This member will be on the board for interview process. Now, this member's nephew is one of the candidate for interview. So when his candidate appears for the interview and he sits on the board, do you think there is a violation of principles of natural justice? Yes, obviously. So here court have said that when such member who is part of a public service commission, who sits in the board while one of his relative is coming for the job interview, that would be violation of principles of natural justice. But if this person recuses himself, means he does not sit in the board, then he is allowed to perform other functions of the public service commission which is not directly related to the interview. ठीक है? So बाकी काम कर सकता है जहाँ पे biasness ना हो. I hope you understand the practical implication of principles of natural justice. I'm explaining you the illustrations, not the theory, so that in case a question is asked, you are able to interpret this concept. ठीक है? मुझे theory पढ़ाने में आपको कोई interest नहीं है, but you should know this concept. Moving ahead, okay, let's take up this question. 2021 again. Which one of the following in Indian polity? See this. देखो कैसा question पूछा जा रहा है. Is an essential feature that indicates that it is federal in character. I hope you will be able to answer this question. Tell me. A. Independence of judiciary is safeguarded. B. Union legislature has elected representatives from constituent units. C. The Union Cabinet can have elected representatives from regional parties. And D. The fundamental rights are enforceable by court of law. So let's understand the terms today. I have selected only those type of questions which reflects the terms. Federal in character. What is the meaning of the word federal, or what we can associate with federal? Is the concept federal and separation of power same? What is federal? Distribution of power. Correct. कैसे power distributed है हमारे यहाँ? How can we say India is a federal form of government? Let's say I am saying India is a federal government. Give me evidence. क्या evidence है कि India एक federal government है या India follows a federal form of government? 2 levels. Correct. Government at 2 levels. Center and state. And in a sense, states are autonomous from the center in certain extent, to a certain extent. That's why Indian Union is slightly different from a very, you can say, a federal government which is USA. So India as a federal government or having a federal form of government is slightly different from America. So India और America में थोड़ा difference है. This is something which we will understand later. But अभी समझ लो कि इंडिया पूरा का पूरा फेडरल भी नहीं है, पूरा का पूरा यूनिटरी भी नहीं है. I don't need to explain you the term, you already know this. I want to ask you why. Where can we find, where is the evidence, कौन सा वो evidence है जहाँ से हम ये कह सकते हैं कि there is government at 2 levels. Again, always remember separation of function. क्या दोनों का function separated है? Correct. 7 schedule. Okay. 7 schedule distributes the law making power of the center under which list? सेंटर के पास पावर किस में है? यूनियन लिस्ट एंड कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट. स्टेट के पास पावर्स कहाँ है? स्टेट लिस्ट एंड कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट. So we see if we draw a Venn diagram of list 1, union list, list 2, state list, and list 3, concurrent list, where both center and states have power to frame laws. Correct? Do you agree? आप अग्री करते हो इससे? अगर सपोज करो सेंटर स्टेट के लिस्ट पे लॉ बना दे तो वो डिसाइड कौन करेगा? Who will decide? Let's say central made a law on one of the matters under state list. Who has jurisdiction to decide such a thing? Obviously the courts. Supreme Court. And that's why Supreme Court has original jurisdiction to decide disputes between center and states. Simple. ठीक है? That's why फेडरेशन में हमेशा डिस्प्यूट सेटलमेंट पावर जुडिशरी को ही होता है. You understand this now? And federation means powers at 2 different levels. Now, I told you here that there is a difference between when we talk about a federal form of government. There is a difference between India and USA. कोई एक डिफरेंस बता दो, क्या फर्क है दोनों में? Tell me one difference between India and USA from the perspective of a federal form of government. Holding up what? अच्छा, coming together, ठीक है? Correct. Article 1. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. and the word itself is United States of America. So it means the 50 states of America, 50 states of America are held together by an agreement, are held together by an agreement. But as such, there is no agreement when we talk about the Indian Union. This is the word is mentioned under Article 1. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. We'll discuss this in detail tomorrow. But as of now, just remember this. So we are nothing but a union of states. And there is no agreement with the state. State has no power to wither away or to secede or to come out of the union. State को कोई power नहीं. But वहाँ states को power है. They can come out of the union. And considering the present situation of America, you know, ऐसा कुछ होगा नहीं. But at least some states are like jittery. So of late US बहुत ज़्यादा news में है. I'm sure you know of lot of things. Violation of international law, attack on Greenland, Venezuela के president को capture कर लिया. तो since America is so much in news, hence we need to be very careful. Again, now I'm talking from the perspective of current affairs. क्योंकि अमेरिका न्यूज़ में है तो इवेंट खुद में इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, लेकिन इवेंट से रिलेटेड जो चीज़ें हैं, इंडिया और यूएस के बीच में क्या डिफरेंस है इन टर्म्स ऑफ द फॉर्म ऑफ आवर गवर्नमेंट, द राइट्स, यू कैन से द लोअर हाउस, द अपर हाउस, प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्शन, इम्पीचमेंट, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, ये सारी चीज़ें पढ़ना पड़ेगा, समझना पड़ेगा. सो वी नीड टू बी वेरी केयरफुल. यस, वायलेशन ऑफ यूएन चार्टर, राइट. ठीक है. Another important difference from a federal point of view is that हमारे यहाँ we have Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, right? So both Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, the representation is through population of a state, correct? है ना? दोनों लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, जैसे लोकसभा में कितने सीट्स हैं? 543. राज्यसभा में कितने सीट्स हैं? 250. Am I right? 543 and 250. So these numbers are based on population percentage of a state. But in USA, the lower house is House of Representative. ये इनका lower house है. And their upper house is Senate. Senate has 100. Senate has 100 seats. So it means 2 seats for each state. It does not matter कि उनका population कितना है. This is one difference, one crucial difference between America and India. Because representation of states also represent a federal character. Again, we'll see this in detail जब हम वहाँ पे आएंगे. As of now, we're just trying to understand on a very superficial level कि federal form of government क्या है. Okay, this is the difference. Just remember this. Question can be framed on this. Another question, 2021. Which of the following best defines the term state? अच्छा हाँ, this is very important. See this very carefully. Go through this statement or this question very carefully asked by UPSC in 2021. Go through it and please tell me कि आप इससे क्या समझ पा रहे हो, कि UPSC आपसे क्या जानना चाह रहा है. जितना सिंपल पढ़ने में लगेगा उतना है नहीं actually. Can anyone just tell me what UPSC expects here from you? And being honest with you, if you have lack of clarity or understanding on such type of conceptual question, just leave it. No need to attempt it unnecessarily. Don't take chances. It's a very honest confession with you. हर क्वेश्चन करना जरूरी नहीं है. You are not supposed to answer everything if you do not understand. It's not only that. सिर्फ लॉजिक होता तो मैं आपसे ये क्वेश्चन नहीं डिस्कस करता आज. सिर्फ लॉजिक नहीं है। चलो इसको थोड़ा सा देख लेते हैं, ये पढ़ो पहले। I'll explain you why I am telling you to read this. क्या है? Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States. This is an international treaty which never came into force. Okay, but it does tell you about 4 important elements of a state. देखो एक बात समझो, ये जो वर्ड स्टेट है इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस में या इंटरनेशनल लॉ में, स्टेट रिप्रेजेंट्स अ सॉवरेन कंट्री। और ये इशू जब उठता है, एज एन ये इशू तब आता है जब एक नया कंट्री इमर्ज होता है। सपोज व्हेन बांग्लादेश वुड हैव फॉर्म्ड, तो एक नया कंट्री आया, तो हम कब कहेंगे कि कोई एक नया कंट्री कहलाया जा सकता है? That's a separate issue, but just know the ingredients of a state. Yes, population, territory, government and sovereignty. State as a person of international law should possess the following qualifications. A permanent population. Our preamble starts with we the people. In a way it represents the population. Can I say that? क्या मैं कह सकता हूँ ये? Yes. A defined territory. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states under article 1, 2 and 3. 2 and 3 में territory defined है हमारा. Government and capacity to enter into relations with the other states. This reflects the element of sovereignty which you have mentioned. What is sovereignty? It's internal and external. Internally आप अपना decision खुद ले सकते हो without any external control, or you have the capacity to enter into a foreign relation, let's say with Russia, or tomorrow let's say with European Union, which we have entered into a treaty. Obviously America is not happy about that, but that does not matter. वो important नहीं है. Important है कि हमारा national interest किसको serve करता है. Okay. Try to find these 4 elements in these options. A, in that sense. So B says, a politically organized people of a definite territory and possessing an authority to govern them, maintain law and order, protect their natural rights and safeguard their means of sustenance. Something is missing here. And in all of these, something is missing. But again, it's very difficult to understand unless until you are a PSIR student. How many of you are PSIR students here? आपको पता था ये? State का definition तो पता होगा. Or you are a law student. Okay. Correct answer is A. Community of persons permanently occupying a definite territory, independent of, see this word, independent of external control and possessing an organized government. This aspect is missing in all of these. Okay. So that's the meaning of state. If you want, you can just write this down. Convention important नहीं है, term important है. And I've told you why it is important. Because the question was asked. Very simple. Moving ahead, coming to the basic elements of a constitution, coming back to where we started, chief purpose of a constitution. I'm sure you have heard this name, Granville Austin, famous constitutional expert, constitutional scholar. Now, he says that the philosophy of the Constitution of India can be summarized as having 3 strands or 3 important principles: protecting and enhancing national unity and integrity, establishing the institutions which uphold spirit of democracy, such as the CAG, such as the Election Commission, such as the Supreme Court and the High Courts, or the National Commission of Backward Classes, National Commission of Scheduled Caste, all other such institutions. Fostering a social revolution to better the lot of mass of Indians. अब इसका क्या मतलब है? Why did Granville Austin mention about social revolution? Where can we find the element of social revolution in the Constitution of India? कौन से पार्ट में हम देख सकते हैं social revolution? Can you tell me? Both. And the base provided in the preamble. Okay. So let's say अगर ये word आपको दिखता है question में, don't get startled. Think logically. तो एक statement आ सकता है कि Constitution of India is a document which fosters social revolution for the betterment of mass of Indians. Don't think that it's incorrect, it's correct. Then purpose of the constitution. Constitution is what? A rule book, we can say. It's supreme law of the land, grand norm, provides for basic rules which allow for minimal coordination among members of society. It decides how government will be constituted and also provides for power sharing mechanism between organs of the government, which we have already discussed. It limits the restriction which government imposes on citizens with respect regarding their fundamental rights, an element of constitutionalism. Such limitations are not to be trespassed by the government in ordinary circumstances. It enables the government to fulfill the aspirations of its society and also create conducive conditions for an equitable and just society, and it establishes certain independent authorities to perform duties in their respective fields. So these are overall the functions of our constitution, and this is based on the views supported by Granville Austin. Then constitutionalism, I think more or less we have already gone through. ये एक बार देख लो, constitutional morality, and we have to understand constitutional morality. Since Dr. B.R. Ambedkar mentioned about constitutional morality, we need to understand it from the perspective of two things: the word political democracy as well as social democracy. First, let's go through what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had to say. What did Grote mean by constitutional morality? Ambedkar quotes a very famous scholar, Grote. By constitutional morality, this is what he's saying in a Constituent Assembly. This is the statement of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly. So he referred to Grote and says that constitutional morality means paramount reverence, means respect for the forms of constitution, enforcing obedience to authority and acting under and within these forms, means whatever the provisions of the constitution are there, either with respect to fundamental rights, directive principles, form of government, separation of powers, powers of the governor, power of state legislature, whatever has been provided in the constitution, usko follow karna hoga. Government cannot violate such provisions. That would be going against constitutional morality. Yet combined with the habit of open speech, of action subject only to define legal control and unrestrained censure of those very authorities as to their public acts, combined with a perfect confidence in the bosom of every citizen, amidst the bitterness of party contest, that forms of constitution will not be less sacred in the eyes of his opponents than his own. He is giving a sort of a very moralistic point of view. But talking about constitutional morality, obviously it's like morals. Like we all obey certain duties, certain morals. And from that point of view, he mentions about political democracy and social democracy. Now, social democracy very clearly reflects DPSPs. Political democracy reflects fundamental rights or political rights of a person. And Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says that without social democracy, there is no meaning of political participation. So he emphasizes a lot on social democracy, means giving rights to the society for their own welfare. Practice question. Now see this question. Which of the following represents an ideal constitution for any country? Go through it very clearly and tell me the correct answer here. A country having written constitution without the element or either constitutionalism or constitutional morality should be of either constitutionalism or constitutional morality. Obviously not. A country having written constitution where powers of legislature, executive and judiciary is provided to the head of the state. What does this suggest? Merger. A country having an unwritten constitution but having elements of constitutional morality, rule of law, and also limited by the principles of constitutionalism. And D, a country having written constitution conferring unrestrained powers to the legislature, executive and the judiciary. So it does not matter even if a country does not have a written constitution, as long as there is elements of constitutional morality, rule of law and principles of constitutionalism. Can you give an example of a country which does not have a written constitution कोई एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हो आप? यूके, करेक्ट. ओके, see this question, which of the following statements are correct? First, constitutional morality refers to adhering to the fundamental principles and spirit of a constitution beyond just its literal text for paramount reverence. Beyond the literal text. Is it okay? Second, Article 21 of the Constitution of India incorporates elements of substantive and procedural due process based on judicial interpretations. Tell me, which one of them is correct? Bharti says C. Adhiraj also says C. Anyone who says B? Fatima also says C. Suraj also says C. Correct. Both these statements are. Both these statements. आपको क्या समझ आ रहा है दोनों स्टेटमेंट देख के? What do you think these statements reflect? Say something. अभी तक मैं ही बोल रहा हूँ. Yes, please. Anyone? What's the meaning of the word spirit of the Constitution? Spirit reflects the ideals. Yeah, in a way, constitutional morality or constitutionalism or rule of law. ठीक है. Correct answer would be so far. जो भी हमने डिस्कस किया है, प्लीज आस्क योर डाउट्स. डू यू फाइंड द लेक्चर रेलेवेंट सो फार? ठीक लग रहा है आपको? समझ आ रही है बातें? लॉजिकल लग रहा है? We have discussed, I think, for almost an hour. I'm sure you have studied. आपने पढ़ रखा है. अभी 1 घंटा में, in this past 1 hour, how it has helped you in processing your thought process regarding polity? Please tell me that. And please share your opinion. It's as if I'm talking to my screen. इतना भी फ्यूचर में मत ले जाओ मुझे. Already we are having AIs and stuff. Yes, anyone? Bharti, Aditya, Suraj, say something. Hemant. Yes. Deep understanding is required. And मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, ये क्वेश्चंस बता रहे हैं, right? So just give me, बस मुझे ये बता दो कि whatever questions we have discussed, what's your understanding? आपको क्या समझ में आ रहा है कि पॉलिटी को कैसे प्रिपेयर करना चाहिए? Changing way of study. Why, Fatima? Logically understandable, more static overview needed. Okay. Static in what way, Preet? Interlinking, हाँ ठीक है, चलो वो हो जाएगा. Not superficial reading and broad understanding. हाँ, absolutely correct. What else? और क्या समझ में आ रहा है आपको? That this will be the, you can say, the structure of our studies, structure of our classes going forward. Are you okay with this? It helps you? I hope so. Yes, terms, process, all these are important. Chalo, good. I hope I am being of slight help to you. I am being helpful rather than being not helpful. Right, that's the whole idea. I don't want to be not helpful. That's my perspective from my point of view. Okay, so let's move to part 2 of today's lecture. Let's dive into the past. पीछे चलते हैं थोड़ा. अभी तक we were discussing about the features, कुछ concepts here and there, rights, liabilities, due process, etc., etc., separation of power, federalism, XYZ. Constitution of India. My first question to you, it's a very generic question, very normal question. Why is the Constitution of India called the Constitution of India? ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा. I'm just asking you for your understanding. Can you tell me? क्या बता सकते हो? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ रिपब्लिक ऑफ इंडिया क्यों नहीं बुलाते? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ सॉवरेन इंडिया रिपब्लिक क्यों नहीं बुलाते? या कुछ और क्यों नहीं बुलाते? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ सोशलिस्ट इंडिया, है ना? आपके पासपोर्ट पे क्या लिखा रहता है? रिपब्लिक ऑफ इंडिया लिखा रहता है, इफ़ यू हैव अ पासपोर्ट, राइट? तो व्हाट आर वी? हम क्या हैं? क्या हम रिपब्लिक हैं, हम सॉवरेन हैं, हम सोशलिस्ट हैं, हम सेक्युलर हैं, हम क्या हैं? व्हाट आर वी? व्हाट इज़ इंडिया? चकदे में शाहरुख खान बोला था ना, इंडिया द आई ओनली रिकॉग्नाइज वन टीम. तो व्हाट इज इंडिया? SSSDR. ठीक, चलो, अभी ऑल ऑफ यू आर करेक्ट. यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स भी सही है, SSSDR भी सही है, बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर भी सही है एक हद तक. आई एम जस्ट राइटिंग दिस वर्ड, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया. ओके, नाउ सी, of late India has Operation Sindoor हुआ पास में पाकिस्तान के साथ. we have had good relations with Russia. We have been having more or less a decent relation with America. So from talking from the perspective of comparative constitution, ठीक है, from the perspective of comparative constitution, कुछ चीज़ें आपको जाननी ज़रूरी है. सबसे पहले तो ऑब्वियसली आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, एंड देन हाउ हैव वी डिवाइज्ड आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया इज कॉल्ड सिंपली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया बिकॉज इट इज मेंशन्ड इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया. सिंपल आंसर, आर्टिकल 393. दैट्स नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट, रेलिवेंट वो नहीं है. रेलिवेंट ये है कि जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया है ये बना कैसे, कहाँ से डिराइव किया गया, जो भी फीचर्स हैं हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में उसको कहाँ से लिए गए. ऑफ लेट दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैज़ नॉट बीन आस्क्ड, बट इट डज नॉट मीन कि पूछा नहीं जा सकता आगे. सो एंड कंसिडरिंग यू नो इंडियन अमेरिकन, इंडियन फ्रेंच, जो भी एक ऑफ लेट एक अच्छा रिलेशंस है हमारा दूसरे कंट्रीज़ के साथ, कीप दैट इन माइंड. ऑफ लेट इंडिया EU, यूरोपियन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, यूरोपियन कमीशन, प्लीज़ पढ़ लीजिएगा, क्वेश्चन आ सकता है वहाँ से फ्रॉम IR परस्पेक्टिव, है ना, बिकॉज हेड ऑफ द स्टेट, सॉरी, द हेड ऑफ द यूरोपियन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन केम टू इंडिया इन द रिपब्लिक डे. स्टडी दैट. सी दिस again. I hope you can, आप इसको पहचान रहे होगे. आप टेकन द स्क्रीनशॉट फ्रॉम लक्ष्मीकांत ओनली. सोर्सेज, वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट सोर्सेज, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935. अभी कुछ देर पहले आई वाज सेइंग दैट द फेडरल एस्पेक्ट ऑफ द इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इज बेस्ड ऑन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव पावर, and that distribution of legislative power is provided under the 7th schedule. Union list, that is list 1, state list, that is list 2, concurrent list, that is list 3. So अब ये क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि ये जो 7th शेड्यूल और ये जो लिस्ट हैं, यूनियन लिस्ट, कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट और स्टेट लिस्ट, ये कहाँ से डिराइव किए गए हैं. इस टाइप के क्वेश्चन आए हैं. सो व्हाट यू नीड टू नो, अगेन यू डोंट, आई एम नॉट टीचिंग यू हिस्ट्री हियर, आई नीड टू बी वेरी क्लियर. We will only discuss as of now certain constitutional developments. Why? Because we need to understand these sources and what was borrowed from these different comparative constitutions. So दोनों एक साथ समझना होगा. Comparative constitution from the perspective of constitutional development, कि हम जब अपना constitution बना रहे थे तो हम कहाँ से क्या क्या चीज़ें source करते चले गए. Okay? Now if I say this, forget about that, what I say. देखो ये क्वेश्चन क्या पूछा है. 2018. In the Federation established by the Government of India Act 1935, residuary powers were given to these. सबसे पहले तो ये बताओ residuary powers होता क्या है. So what is a residuary power? Extra powers. We can say that not covered under any list. When we talk from the perspective of 7th schedule, union list, entry 97. That is residuary power. Means if anything is not written anywhere, either in the union list or in the state list or in the concurrent list, then who assumes the power? The parliament has power to make law on such topic which cannot be found under any of the list of the 7 schedule. This is the meaning of residuary, मतलब जो बच गया. Word से जाओ ना. Whenever you are not able to understand any term, just find out the dictionary meaning, Oxford dictionary meaning or any dictionary meaning, Cambridge, Oxford, जो भी है आपके पास. What is residue? Which has been left out. What has been left out? Something which is not mentioned on any of the entries under any of the list in the 7th schedule. भाई वो है ही नहीं वहाँ पे. Hence residue. क्यों नहीं है? तो जब list बना था, then those people could not envisage. Let's say if we talk about the present circumstances and we say that who has the power to make laws to regulate artificial intelligence, ये थोड़ी है वहाँ पे. It's a new thing. It's a new emergence of a new technology. And from the perspective of residue powers, Parliament will get the authority to legislate on such subject which is not mentioned. Now, under the residue list, I'm not going into enough detail right now, just explaining the basics. Parliament has raised a lot of taxes as a part of its residue powers. So, as of now, under the Constitution of India, residue powers किसको है? Parliament को है, ठीक है? But ये question वो नहीं पूछ रहा है. In the federation established by the Government of India Act 1935, residue powers were given to the federal. देखो, अभी तक हम पार्लियामेंट की बात कर रहे थे. फेडरल लेजिस्लेचर, गवर्नर जनरल, प्रोविंशियल लेजिस्लेचर, प्रोविंशियल गवर्नर्स. B, Adhiraj, all of you B. Correct. So it means earlier the residue powers were not given to the legislature as such, and this has been mentioned here. See this. Residual powers of legislation. I have taken this directly from the Government of India Act 1935. Just for your reference, just for your understanding. कुछ याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है, बस पढ़ लो एक बार कि लिखा क्या है. एक्चुअल वर्डिंग्स में गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट में क्या लिखा है. इट सेज द गवर्नर जनरल. सी, आई होप दिस क्लियर्स ऑल योर डाउट. May by public notification empower either the federal legislature or a provincial legislature to enact a law with respect to any matter not enumerated in any of the list in the 7th schedule to this act. वहाँ पे भी 7th ही schedule था, ठीक है. Coming back to this understanding of division of power, so this concept of division of legislative powers has been taken from the Government of India Act 1935. So Government of India Act 1935 also provided for 3 lists. Can you name those 3 lists provided under the Government of India Act 1935? बता सकते हो? यूनियन लिस्ट, आई थिंक स्टेट को प्रोविंशियल लिस्ट बोला जाता था. कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट वाज सेम, कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट. यही प्रोवाइडेड था गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट में, दैट इज 1935. अब गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 केम ऑन द रिकमेंडेशन ऑफ साइमन कमीशन. आई होप यू नो दैट. तो इसके पहले कौन सा एक्ट था? गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919, राइट. सो डिड गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919, a legislation prior to 1935 act, provided for this sharing of legislative powers? वहाँ कैसा दिया था? वहाँ क्या दिया था? What was provided there? 2 list. Nice. क्या थे वो लिस्ट? Reserved list and transferred list, right? Correct. Diarchy at province. Absolutely. So diarchy का क्या मतलब हुआ? ये तो हमने पढ़ लिया कि I'm sure you have studied this. Government of India Act 1919, diarchy was provided provinces, and the Government of India Act 1935 abolished diarchy and provided for provincial autonomy. हमने सबने पढ़ा है ये चीज़. Provincial autonomy का मतलब क्या हुआ? Provincial autonomy का मतलब हुआ कि वो अपने हिसाब से अपना लॉ बना सकते थे based on the matters provided under the provincial list. Okay. And diarchy was introduced. I'm giving you a statement. Tell me if it's true or not. Diarchy was introduced at center according to the Government of India Act 1935. इस Government of India Act 1935 के हिसाब से diarchy सेंटर पे अब स्टार्ट किया गया था. इज दिस स्टेटमेंट ट्रू और नॉट? या मेंशन किया गया था. ट्रू. सो व्हेन यू, जब आप हिस्ट्री में पढ़ना, and my only point to use that, when you study this, study in detail, study thoroughly. I'm just providing you the reference point here. See this question asked in 2012. Acha. The distribution of powers between the center and the states in Indian Constitution is based on the scheme provided in. अच्छा ये पूछ चुका है. Okay, perfect. Asked in 2012. I hope you know the answer here. C or D? C or D? C. What was the purpose of D? That is Indian Independence Act. क्या purpose था इसका? Yeah, it constituted two dominion. So let's understand certain historical aspects. Asked in 2024. See this. With reference to the Government of India Act 1935, consider the following statements. So a lot of questions have been asked on Government of India Act specifically. अब इसको आप हिस्ट्री का क्वेश्चन कह लो या इसको आप पॉलिटी कह लो, आपको जो कहना है कह लो. पॉइंट ये है कि यू हैव टू नो अबाउट सर्टेन फीचर्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट फ्रॉम अ पॉलिटिकल परस्पेक्टिव, है ना. क्या स्टेटमेंट है? इट प्रोवाइडेड फॉर द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ एन ऑल इंडिया फेडरेशन बेस्ड ऑन द यूनियन ऑफ ब्रिटिश इंडियन प्रोविंसेस एंड प्रिंसली स्टेट्स. Next, defense and foreign affairs were kept under the control of federal legislature. Which of the statements given above is are correct? Tell me. This is correct. It did provide for establishment of all India Federation based on the union of British Indian provinces and princely states. ये अलग बात है कि वो सक्सेसफुल नहीं हुआ, बट प्रोवाइड यही किया गया था. But it was not successful. Because why it was not successful, Bharti? Can you tell me? क्यों नहीं successful था ये? Because the princely states refused to join. Correct. And second, defense and foreign affairs were kept under control of federal legislature. If this statement is incorrect, तो किसके कंट्रोल में था ये? It was kept under Governor General. Okay. This one. Consider the following statements. The Montague-Chelmsford reforms of 1919 recommended granting voting rights to all the women above the age of 21. Again, a question based specifically on Government of India Acts, or the you can say the prelude to the Constitution of India. Second, the Government of India Act 1935 gave women reserved seats in the legislature. Which one? A. Bharti, sure? Not A. Did not grant to all the women. Read the statement very carefully. सारे women को नहीं दिया गया था. Few, yeah. So some informations from the perspective of Indian Council Act 1919, introduced bicameralism and direct elections. Indian Legislative Council was replaced by a bicameral legislature consisting of upper house and a lower house. Now this basically paved the way for the current structure of our parliament. जो हमारा अभी का parliament है, it is based on this concept. And majority of members of both houses were chosen by direct elections. So as basically from the Act of 1909, उसके पहले 1899, 1919, 1935. In this process, basically, direct elections and seats available for direct elections increased, and the structure was so far crown के नीचे Secretary of State, based in London, who was also a member of the British cabinet. Secretary of State के नीचे Governor General or Viceroy, whatever you can call, based on the timelines. इसके नीचे the provincial governors. And because of this structurization, it was said that whatever autonomy was provided under the Government of India Act 1935, in effect, that much autonomy was not there, because through the provincial governors, Governor General could pull up the string based on the recommendation of the Secretary of State. So ultimately, although on the paper it appeared that yes, autonomy or federation was ensured, but in reality it was a heavily centralized structure based on this form. Then it says Indian legislature were made more representative, because in the upper house, Council of States, 34 elected members out of 60. So number of elected members increased slowly when we move ahead from 1800s to 1909, 1919, 1935. The number of people who could enter the parliament through direct election increased. Lower house, 104 elected members out of 144. And this also extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. And the Government of India Act 1935 further increased the element of communal representation, which was started way back through the 1909 Act. Electoral rights to few, on limited grounds were provided. It granted franchise to limited number of people on the basis of property, tax, education, etc. Different criteria were enacted. And it created a new office of the High Commissioner for India in London and transferred to him some of the functions which were earlier performed by the Secretary of State. So in that structure, Secretary of State ke niche High Commissioner of India, also add that. Provincial subjects were divided into transferred subjects, which were to be administered by the governor with the aid of ministers responsible to the Legislative Council. This effectively started the concept of aid and advice, although in a shallow form, but start yahi se hua. And the reserved subjects were to be administered by the governor and his executive council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. It means the governor could take decision in their discretion on this reserved subjects. Diarchy was introduced, a dual scheme. Diarchy means double form of government or the dual government. Dual scheme of governance was known as diarchy, meaning double rule. Diarchy was introduced at provinces for relaxation of central control over provinces, division of sources of revenue, provincial budgets separated from Government of India budget, and empowered provinces to levy its own taxes. So we can definitely say that when diarchy was introduced at the provinces, the idea was to free them up from central control. Idea यही था कि उनको खुद का काम करने दो, ज़्यादा interference नहीं होना चाहिए. But it was very difficult to achieve what was thought of on paper because of various discretionary powers given to the governor through the Governor General. Now see the section 11 of Government of India Act, provisions as to defense, ecclesiastical affairs, external affairs and the tribal areas. All of these reserved subjects were given to the Governor General. So the functions of Governor General with respect to defense and ecclesiastical affairs, which means religious affairs, and with respect to external affairs, except the relations between federation and any part of his majesty's dominions, shall be exercised by him in his discretion. Means no aid and advice from the ministries, and his functions or in relation to the tribal area shall be similarly exercised, also with respect to tribal areas. और तभी आज के डेट में हमारे यहाँ all aspects of tribal areas or decisions with respect to tribal areas is provided under 5th and 6th schedule, where also certain discretion is provided to the governor. Government of India Act 1935, some of the important highlights. Just added few points so that you remember. Obviously established the Indian Federation comprising the British states as well as princely states. British India provinces, Indian states as units. However, the federation never fully materialized due to reluctance of many princely states to join. It granted or provided for provincial autonomy through those separation of legislative or you can say legislative functions. Provinces were no longer delegates of center, but were autonomous units of federation. Distribution of legislative powers between center and provinces provided for federal list, provincial list and concurrent list, and residuary powers were vested with the Governor General. Governors acted on the aid and advice of ministers responsible to provincial legislatures and bicameral central and provincial legislatures. So Legislative Assembly for 5 years and Legislative Council as permanent body not subject to dissolution. So currently we can say the same for Council of States. So everything has a backstory, that's the point. But these are the federal features of Government of India Act. If we talk about other federal features, it introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces: Bengal, Bombay, Bihar, Assam and the United Provinces or the UP. Currently, which are the states which have bicameral legislature in states? Can you name the states? Fatima, just go through these slides and I'll share them with you, and nothing to worry. See, Government of India Act 1919, just remember diarchy and other provinces, other aspects, and every subsequent legislation further increased participation of Indians in the law making process. इसको ऐसे समझ लो, हम टाइम में जितना आगे जाएंगे पार्टिसिपेशन ऑफ इंडियंस इन द लॉ मेकिंग प्रोसेस उतना ज़्यादा बढ़ता चला गया. ठीक है, या आंध्रा, तेलंगाना, यूपी, बिहार, करेक्ट. व्हाट अबाउट तमिलनाडु? Pondicherry, Delhi, Pondi are UT, not states, by the way. Okay, we'll take up that matter separately. Chalo. Government of India Act further provided for adoption of diarchy at the center. So remember this, it abolished diarchy at the provinces and established diarchy at the center. And consequently, federal subjects were divided into reserved subjects and transfer subjects. However, this provision of the Act did not come into operation at all. It established a federal court headed by CGI, who had original jurisdiction in certain disputes between federation, provinces or federated states. This is almost similar to the present original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. It further extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for depressed classes, that is scheduled caste, women and labour workers. It abolished Council of India, established by Government of India Act 1858, and the Secretary of State for India was provided with a team of advisors. Then there are other features. It extended franchisee. About 10% of the total population got the voting right based on criteria such as property, education and income, which significantly increased the electorate compared to previous reforms. So it only gave elector a right to vote to around 10%, not to all, and particularly, especially not to all women. Established Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. However, Privy Council in London remained the final court of appeal. Established Public Service Commission at centre and provinces, which we already have, or which we have under the Constitution of India, that is the Union Public Service Commission and State Public Service Commission. So, उस Government of India Act में क्या था? Federal Public Service Commission at the centre, Provincial Public Service Commission and the provinces, and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. More or less it's same, it's just that the word federal has been removed or replaced by the word union. Next, it provided for establishment of a federal court which was set up in 1937. However, Privy Council in London remained the court of appeal and communal representation was expanded. Same point. Then I've told you that Government of India Act, although it increased participation of Indians in the law making process, yet centralization power tha. There were elements of centralization. Sanction of Governor or Governor General or Governor required for certain legislative proposals passed by Legislative Assembly. So their approval was necessary. Without their approval, it could not have become law. So even though it was made by the legislatures at the provincial level, yet without their approval, without their saying yes, it would not have materialized into a law. It was optional for princely states to join the federation, but not for provinces. Governor could act in his discretion or in exercise of individual judgment on certain bills, and mostly on those bills which required excessive expenditures, the governor did not approve, and hence whatever bills was passed by the provincial legislatures, it was not approved by the governor, at times also on the behest of Governor General. Governor General account of special responsibilities could override ministerial advice and act as per the directions of Secretary of State. So I told you that whatever legislative autonomy was provided was overruled by the structure: Crown, Secretary of State, Commissioner in London, Governor General, and then governors in the provinces. All of them, starting from here, all of them had discretionary power. So if a statement comes in the exam that the Government of India Act 1935 was completely federal in nature, galat hoga. It was not completely federal in nature. Just remember this. And because of these discretionary powers, the Government of India Act 1935 had centralizing tendency. Because of these discretionary powers, the Government of India Act 1935 had centralizing tendency. Okay. Any doubt? Please ask. Fatima, since you said आपको doubt रहता है. No doubts? Okay. As you say. Bill passed by central legislature was subject to veto by Crown. I hope you understand this now. Okay, I think we have already discussed these questions. Now moving on to working of the Constituent Assembly. Just one question. Constituent Assembly of India क्या था? Constitution making body था या law making body था? Constituent Assembly of India was a constitution making body or a law making body or both? Both. On what account? How? How it was both? Can you elaborate? Shanu? कैसे था दोनों? Okay. Currently, the word constituent, see this word constituent, because ये वर्ड पे बहुत फोकस्ड है, अभी भी है, पूरा का पूरा केशव नंदा भारती जजमेंट इस वर्ड के ऊपर है. तो ये वर्ड समझना इंपॉर्टेंट है. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ दिस वर्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट? व्हाट डज इट मीन कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट? फॉरगेट अबाउट असेंबली, भूल जाओ असेंबली को, इसका मतलब बताओ. एंड फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, इफ आई mention about our parliament, let's assume I say this, tell me if I'm correct or incorrect. Parliament, Indian Parliament has law making power as well as a constituent power. कौन सा है दोनों में पार्लियामेंट के पास? शानू says law making power, Sandeep says constituent power, फातिमा says law making power, अधिराज says both. अधिराज प्लीज बताइए क्यों है दोनों? आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट पार्लियामेंट राइट नाउ. Correct. Correct, Aditya. Law making power according to Article 246 and 13. 246 क्योंकि 246 में ही 7 शेड्यूल का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन दिया गया है, और आर्टिकल 13 विल स्टडी टुमारो व्हेन विल फोकस ऑन द लॉ मेकिंग पावर. और एक्चुअली आर्टिकल 13 में, जस्ट फॉर योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, द वर्ड लॉ हैज बीन डिफाइंड. लॉ इज डिफाइंड and it includes law made by parliament as well as subordinate legislation, that is ordinance, not ordinance exactly, ordinance is not subordinate legislation, by rules, regulations, etc. And this word constituent power is mentioned under article 368 of the Constitution of India, which we know talks about amendment of the constitution. And these two powers are different. ये दोनों सेम पावर नहीं है, दोनों अलग अलग पावर है. कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट पावर हम उसको कहते हैं, वो पावर किसी भी बॉडी का where that body has the power to change its constitution. We come back to the same question, what is a constitution? Or why is a constitution called a constitution? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्यों बुलाते हैं? कोई और लॉ क्यों नहीं बुलाते? We generally call law made by parliament, any law made by parliament, as ordinary legislation, but constitution is different. क्यों? Why? Why is constitution different? Or why is constitution called a constitution? Because it is supreme, hence it is called a constitution. Because it is supreme, hence it is called a constitution. Constitution में जो भी बातें दी गई हैं वो सुप्रीम है, उसके बियॉन्ड कुछ नहीं है. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में ही पार्लियामेंट के सारे पावर्स के बारे में जिक्र है. All of that has been mentioned in the constitution, as I've mentioned, as I've written here. So this word constitution comes from the word constituent, means having the power to, yes, supreme, wider, and laws are narrow. Correct. The word constituent assembly, constituent यहाँ पे, constituent power means the ability to make or frame or amend the constitution. Okay. So whenever a constitution is amended, it is done through a special process. तो लॉ बनाने का प्रोसेस अलग है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को अमेंड करने का प्रोसेस अलग है. As I've told you, constitution processes are important. Amendment becomes part of the law making process और law changing process, क्योंकि आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन चेंज करो, बहुत बड़ी बात है. It's a big thing. And that's why this power to alter or amend the constitution is referred as constituent power of the parliament. I hope now you will able to relate from this term constituent power of the parliament से constituent assembly, the power of the assembly to create a constitution. ठीक है? I hope अब आप कभी भूलोगे नहीं इसको. I hope you'll never forget this. चलो, moving ahead. Very factual question, but you should know. इसमें there's nothing, no concept here. Asked 2024, who was the provincial president of the Constituent Assembly before Dr. Rajendra Prasad took over? Correct answer is D, Dr. Sachidanand Sinha. It's just that ऐसे क्वेश्चन में या तो आप जानते हो या तो आप नहीं जानते हो, गेस वर्क का कोई पॉइंट नहीं है. नहीं जानते हो, just leave it. Now see, 2013 question. With reference to Indian history, the members of the Constituent Assembly from the provinces were, options are A, directly elected by the people of those provinces, B, nominated by the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, C, elected by the provincial legislative assemblies, and D, selected by the government for their expertise in constitutional matters. Which one? See, so clearly we need to know थोड़ा सा detail में about the members of Constituent Assembly also, right? Yeah, see, elected by the provincial legislative assemblies. It means they were selected by indirect election. Can I say this? They were selected based on indirect election. क्या मैं बोल सकता हूँ ये? Okay. Some basics, just let's go through it. Idea of Constituent Assembly for the first time mooted by Mr. M. N. Roy. In 1935, the Indian National Congress for the first time officially demanded a Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru, on behalf of Indian National Congress, declared the Constitution of Free India must be framed without outside interference by a Constituent Assembly based on an adult franchise. Now, Constituent Assembly was constituted based on which plan? August offer, क्रिप्स मिशन और कैबिनेट मिशन, तीनों में से किस बेसिस पे कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली बना था? कैबिनेट बना था कैबिनेट मिशन पे, बट द रोल ऑफ ऑगस्ट ऑफर एंड क्रिप्स वाज आल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट. जस्ट कीप दैट इन माइंड. सो इट सेज द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबलीज डिमांड फॉर फर्स्ट एक्सेप्टेड बाय द ऑगस्ट ऑफर. पहली बार ऑगस्ट ऑफर में इसको एक्सेप्ट किया गया. However, it was in Cripps mission that the British accepted for Constituent Assembly consisting of entirely Indians. So, अगस्त ऑफर में पहली बार इस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट किया गया कि ठीक है कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली आपका हम बना देंगे. क्रिप्स मिशन में बोला गया कि ठीक है आपका जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली होगा वो पूरे इट विल ओनली कंप्राइज ऑफ इंडियंस, नो अदर पीपल, एज इन नो ब्रिटिशर्स. एंड लास्टली इट वॉज कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड एज यू नो बेस्ड ऑन कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान. डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज. अगर ऐसा कोई स्टेटमेंट आता है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबलीज डिमांड वाज फर्स्ट एक्सेप्टेड बाय ब्रिटिश इन ऑगस्ट ऑफर, उसको गलत मत मार्क कर देना, वो सही होगा. ठीक है, डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज. So finally, a cabinet mission was sent to India, where it rejected the idea of two constituent assemblies. It put forth a scheme for constituent assembly, which more or less satisfied the Muslim League. But obviously, later Muslim League did not join. Constituent assembly was set up in November 1946 as per cabinet mission plan, and it suggested indirect elections by members of recently elected provincial legislative assemblies. An election of members, it comprised of 292 members through provincial legislative assemblies. 93 members represented the Indian princely states, and 4 members represented the chief commissioners' provinces. And due to partition of India, under the Mountbatten Plan of June 1947, a separate constituent assembly was set up for Pakistan, and representatives of some provinces ceased to be members of the assembly. And consequently, the membership of the constituent assembly was reduced to 299. These are the absolute basics. Now, again, some of the other basics. First meeting held on 9th December with Sachidan Sinha as the interim president. This is what was asked in 2024. यही पूछा गया था. Very small yet factual information. On 11th December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of Constituent Assembly. And on 13 December 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru moved objective resolution, which later became the preamble. And the drafting committee was appointed with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as the chairman. And 26 November, people of India through Constituent Assembly adopted, enacted and gave themselves the Constitution of India. And obviously on 26 January 1950, the Constitution came into effect. Now, when the Constitution of India came into force on 26 January, it repealed the India Independence Act 1947. So, I think we have already discussed this. So, this is India Independence Act. Just few important points. See this. Two independent dominions to substitute other provisions for certain provisions of the Government of India Act 1935, which apply outside those dominions, and to provide for other matters. Certain basic points again. Indian Independence Act established dominions, two dominions. It did not establish two sovereign nations. Two dominions, namely India and Pakistan, obviously, and it repealed the word Emperor of India as a title for the British Crown and ended all existing treaties with princely states. It resulted in lapse of suzerainty of His Majesty over the Indian states. And on 15th August 1947, what did India Independence Act end? It ended all treaties and agreements in force between His Majesty and the rulers of Indian states, all functions exercisable by His Majesty with respect to Indian states, all powers, rights, authority or jurisdiction exercisable by His Majesty in relation to Indian states by treaty, grant, usage or other aspects, and divided provinces of Bengal into East Bengal and West Bengal and Punjab into West Punjab and East Punjab, based on which later on partition happened. Now the impact of, there was also an impact of Indian Independence Act 1947 on the Constituent Assembly. क्या था impact? Indian Independence Act of 1947 made the following three changes in the Assembly. Assembly was made a fully sovereign body which could frame any constitution as it pleased. The Act empowered Assembly to abrogate or alter any law made by British Parliament in relation to India. Second, Assembly also became a legislative body, that is, it had power to constitute the constitution, hence constituent power as well as law making power. So it says, thus the Assembly became the first Parliament of free India, and whenever the Assembly met as a constituent body, see this, it was chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and when it met as a legislative body, it was chaired by Dr. G.V. Mavalankar. And the Muslim League members hailing from areas included in Pakistan withdrew from the Constituent Assembly for India, and because of which the number came down to 299 from 389, and this was done under the Cabinet Mission Plan, and strength of Indian provinces was reduced from 296 to 229, and those of princely states from 93 to 70. So princely states initially, they were not very keen to join the Constituent Assembly, but later on they did join the Constituent Assembly. So in addition to the making of constitution and enacting of ordinary laws, Constituent Assembly also performed the following functions. It ratified India's membership of the Commonwealth in May 1949. It adopted the national flag on 22nd July 1947. It adopted the national anthem on 24 January 1950. It adopted national song on 24 January 1950 and elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first President of India on 24 January 1950. So 24 January 1950, three important things happened. Three important things happened on 24 January. I think these are practice questions. See this. Consider the following statements about the Constituent Assembly. First, the Constituent Assembly was set up in November 1946 as per the Cripps mission. Is this true or false? False. Second, the Constituent Assembly was made a fully sovereign body to frame the constitution. True or false? True. Third, Constituent Assembly became both a sovereign body to frame the constitution and a legislative body to enact laws for the country. True. Right? 2 and 3. This one, with reference to Indian Independence Act 1947, consider the following statements. The legislation created two independent dominions, namely India and Pakistan, having a Governor General. So the Governor General was common. True or false? True. Second, the Act repealed the use of Emperor of India as a title for British Crown and ended all existing treaties with the princely states. True. We just saw this. Third, the legislature of each of the new dominions had full power to make laws for their dominion, including laws having extraterritorial operation. What about this? Yes, this is also true. So these type of questions can be asked. These are like practice questions for you. So these again questions कैसे भी पूछे जा सकते हैं. If you have sound knowledge, you have at least a certain clarity about these topics, it becomes easier to answer them. Now, various committees, I have taken this from your Lakshmikant, you can just go through it. Okay, major committees under Constituent Assembly. I will not go through them. However, I have added them as a part of your PPT so that you can just go through them. Drafting Committee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman. Other people were Gopala Swami Iyengar, Alladi Krishna Swami Iyer, Dr. K.M. Munshi, Sayyid Muhammad Sadaullah, N. Madhava Rao, and T.T. Krishmacharya. All of these were members. Now coming to sources of the constitution. For your better understanding, I have taken these infographics from your magazine only. So British constitution, see this, parliamentary form of government, bicameralism and cabinet system, parliamentary privileges, rule of law, law making procedure, single citizenship and doctrine of pleasure. Now just tell me this, कि Indian form of government और British form of government में basic difference क्या है, बस मुझे ये बता दो. What's the basic difference between India and Britain and the form of government? What's the basic difference? Correct. Parliament is supreme in UK. Correct. Britain is not a republic. We are a republic. What is the meaning of the word republic? क्या मतलब होता है इसका? Correct. Head of the state is elected. What type of elected? Direct or indirect? Could be either. Could be direct, could be indirect. Okay. Parliamentary supremacy. What is the meaning of the term parliamentary supremacy? It means whatever the parliament makes cannot be questioned by the courts. We do not have this concept here. What sort of concept do we have in India? इंडिया में क्या कॉन्सेप्ट है? उसको हाँ उसको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सुप्रीमेसी कहते हैं. Just know these terms. Be aware about these terms. And yes, it is based on judicial review. Talking about judicial review, कौन से प्रोविजंस है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का जहाँ पे हम कह सकते हैं कि जुडिशरी को पावर है रिव्यू का? कैन यू कोट सर्टेन आर्टिकल्स? करेक्ट. 13. व्हाट एल्स? 142. चलो कंप्लीट जस्टिस, ठीक है, आई विल टेक इट. व्हाट एल्स? 32, 226, 32. What else? 123? नहीं 123 is ordinance making power of the executive. Judiciary का power. 50 is separation of executive. ठीक है चलो in a way. 226, 131, etc. So there are lot of provisions. Okay. Under Article 32 and 226 specifically, this one and this one, क्या पावर्स है सुप्रीम कोर्ट को और हाई कोर्ट को? ओनली रिट्स. Remember, 3 words are mentioned in Article 32. One is order, directions, and writs. Just remember this. Of late, particular terms are being asked from the Constitution. I hope you know that. है ना? ठीक है. American Constitution, fundamental rights, post of vice president, impeachment of president, judicial review, removal of Supreme Court and High Court judges. Now, if we are a parliamentary form of government, then we have a parliament, we have a prime minister, but vice president तो presidential form of government में होते हैं ना, don't you think? Vice president is in a presidential form of government. We have vice president in America. So how does the role of vice president fits under the Constitution of India? Correct. That's why the role of vice president is sui generis, means a very new model, and he is member of both the executive as well as the legislature. He is the member of both executive as well as legislature. So as a member of executive, he is the vice president. As a member of legislature, he is the chairperson or chairman of Rajya Sabha. Duality of function, है ना, कह सकते हैं ना. Judicial review, removal of Supreme Court and High Court judges. Okay. Irish Constitution, directive principles, election of President of India and nomination of members of Rajya Sabha. Canadian Constitution, federal system with strong central authority. Residual powers in the center. I hope now you know the meaning of residuary powers, and appointment of governor by the center. Then Weimar Constitution or German Constitution, suspension of fundamental rights during emergency, which we will discuss in detail, emergency aspects. South Africa, amendment of the constitution in Article 368. Japan, procedure established by law. देखो, हम सब ने पढ़ा है कि due process has been taken from America, but the concept of procedure established by law has been taken from Japan. Just remember this, don't get confused. Due process America का है, clear है? Procedure established by law एक अलग concept है. Don't get confused between due process and procedure established by law. A very straightforward and simple question can be asked. पहला statement, due process of law has been taken from the American Constitution. दूसरा, procedure established by law has been taken from Japanese Constitution, or vice versa. The statements. Don't get confused. France, obviously, the concept of liberty, equality, and fraternity along with republic, है ना? Australian Constitution, concurrent list, joint sitting of Parliament, freedom of trade and services within country. Now see this, Government of India Act 1935. Your PMF magazine also mentions about it. Office of the Governor, federal scheme, administrative details, judiciary, public service commissions, emergency provisions. Also federal scheme में the schedules आ गया, 7 schedule, isn't it? And Russian Constitution, 5-year plans, fundamental duties. This again, this is from NCERT, same एक ही चीज़ है, देख लेना. British Constitution, first past the post, parliamentary form of government, idea of the rules of law, institutions of speaker and her role, law making procedure, etc. Charter of Fundamental Rights from America and power of judicial review and independent judiciary from America. Coming to preamble, let's discuss about preamble. Because Constitution comprise of preamble, the 22 parts which are further subdivided into different chapters starting from article 1 to 395. Know these things क्योंकि आजकल इस तरह के questions पूछे जा रहे हैं. And obviously there are 12 schedules. My first question to you is that on 26th January 1950 इसमें से क्या क्या चेंज होगा? कितने शेड्यूल थे 26 जनवरी 1950 को? 8. Remember these subtle changes. And based on this, question has also been asked on preamble in a deeper way. Just let's go through this. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic republic, on 26 January 1950, I am just marking those words which were not there. ठीक है? ये नहीं था. और क्या नहीं था? बताओ. इंटेग्रिटी नहीं था. correct. Now let's look at the question, not this one. ये वाला 2021. What was the exact constitutional status? What was the exact constitutional status of India on 26 January 1950? See? Sovereign Democratic Republic. So socialist नहीं हो सकता, secular नहीं हो सकता, सिर्फ democratic republic नहीं था, sovereign भी था. इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस आए हैं. You should know about these terms. Now this is, ये तो बहुत straightforward है. Which of the following objectives is not embodied in the preamble to the Constitution of India? Tell me. Liberty of thought, economic liberty, liberty of expression, liberty of belief. Which one? This question, 2017 वाला question. ओनली शानू, इकोनॉमिक लिबर्टी. तो इसका मतलब एक एक टर्म पढ़ना इंपॉर्टेंट है. जस्टिस, सोशल, इकोनॉमिक एंड पॉलिटिकल. लिबर्टी ऑफ थॉट, एक्सप्रेशन, बिलीफ, फेथ एंड वर्शिप. इकोनॉमी नहीं है, ठीक है. लिबर्टी में इकोनॉमी नहीं है. इक्वालिटी ऑफ स्टेटस एंड अपॉर्चुनिटी. दीज थ्री टर्म्स, आई मस्ट टेल यू, दीज थ्री टर्म्स वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Your homework for today is that tomorrow when we'll start with these yes Ayush, पहले डायरेक्ट पूछते थे, अब कॉम्प्लेक्स हो रहा है. See, this is why the PYQ helps. It gives us the right path. It brings us to reality. हम हवा में नहीं रहते. ये नहीं कह रहे यार प्रियम्बल पढ़ लिया, हाँ हो गया, सब जान लिए. नहीं, can't say that anymore if you are a serious aspirant, and I am here as a serious person to tell you the reality, the truth, and to ensure कि आप किसी भी गलत फहमी में ना रहो. क्वेश्चंस इजी यहाँ है, as long as you are able to understand what is being asked, तब तक इजी है, इतना भी इजी नहीं है. Your homework for tomorrow is that among these words I want to test कि आप कितना समझ पा रहे हो. Among these words, try to find out exact provisions of fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy from these words only, or any of the word mentioned in the preamble. ठीक है, that's your homework. क्वेश्चन देखते हैं. अब ये क्वेश्चन देखते हैं. Consider the following statements in respect of the Constitution Day. अब ये कब पूछा गया है? 2023 में. डायरेक्टली नहीं बोल रहा है प्रियम्बल पे, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे के बेसिस पे पूछा जा रहा है. फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डे इज सेलिब्रेटेड ऑन 26 नवंबर एवरी ईयर टू प्रमोट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज अमंग सिटीजंस, एंड दिस डेट हैज बीन मेंशन्ड हियर. सी दिस इन आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली भी वर्ड मेंशन्ड है प्रियम्बल में, जस्ट फॉर योर इन्फॉर्मेशन. जल्दबाजी में आंसर मत कर देना कि नहीं कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली क्यों लिखा होगा, कहीं पे लिखा है भाई. This 26th day of November 1949, कौन सा डेट लिखा है? ये डेट नहीं लिखा है. It's better I erase this. This is not written. What is written is rather something else. 26th November 1949. This date is mentioned in the preamble. याद रखना. Do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this constitution. So it was merely adopted and enacted. It did not come into force. It came into force on 26 January 1950, and that's why we celebrate Republic Day on that day. Simple. Yeah, Constitution date started on 2015. But वो hardly ये बात पूछेंगे. तो पहला statement तो सही हो गया. Second statement, on 26 November 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India set up a drafting committee under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to prepare a draft Constitution of India. Now, assume करो आपको इसके बारे में कुछ भी नहीं पता है. Let's assume you have not studied या you just don't remember. देखा था कल रात को, आज एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन आ गया है, you don't know. Think very logically कि अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बन चुका है, अडॉप्ट हो चुका है, तो इट मीन्स द ड्राफ्टिंग कमिटी पहले बना होगा. Hence, very clearly the statement is incorrect. Which of the following is correct? Both statement 1 and 2 are correct. नहीं. Both statement 1 and 2 are correct. नहीं. Statement 1 is correct, and but statement 2 is incorrect. सही. Statement 1 is correct. नहीं. C. Okay. So although it is asking you about Constitution Day directly, but indirectly the reference is on preamble. Tough question नहीं है if you are aware about the basics. This one, the preamble to the Constitution of India. अच्छा हाँ, part है कि नहीं है? So it is a part of the Constitution of India. But there are two sides. Again, दो कहानी है इसमें भी. According to the Berubari judgment, it was not considered to be a part of the Constitution of India. But ये पोजीशन चेंज हो गया केशव नंदा भारती केस में. केशव नंदा भारती केस में बोला गया कि इट इज वेरी मच पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, बट इट डज नॉट हैव अ लीगल इफेक्ट इन इटसेल्फ. नाउ द मोमेंट वी से इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, इट मीन्स इट कैन बी अमेंडेड, बट उन फीचर्स को अमेंड नहीं किया जा सकता जो कि बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर को रिफ्लेक्ट करते हैं. सो योर सेकेंड जॉब फॉर टुमारो, योर सेकेंड होमवर्क, दिस इज योर फर्स्ट होमवर्क. ये पहला होमवर्क है आपका. दूसरा होमवर्क है कि इसमें से जो जो टर्म बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर लगता है कि है वो बताओ कौन सा है. टेल मी विच ऑफ दीज टर्म्स मेंशन्ड इन द प्रीएम्बल रिफ्लेक्ट बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर. आई एम आस्किंग वेरी ऑब्जेक्टिवली, नॉट सब्जेक्टिवली. Clearly this is a basic structure, this is not a basic structure, something like that. Okay. Next question, mind of the makers of the Constitution of India is reflected in which of the following? I think very straightforward, preamble. So preamble pe more or less very normal questions have been asked, but don't take chances, have a thorough understanding. So preamble is based on objective resolution moved by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as you all know. The words socialist, secular and integrity were added by Constitution 42nd Amendment, and the preamble does not grant any power, but it gives a discretion, it gives a direction and purpose to the Constitution, also outline its objective. So purpose क्या है? Preamble contains the fundamentals of the Constitution and serves the following important purposes. What are these? First, contains the enacting clause which brings the Constitution into force. The date is 26th November 1949. Declares the rights and freedoms intended for its people. Declares the basic type of government and polity which is sought to be established in India, and throws light on the source of the Constitution, we the people of India, because ये यहीं से start होता है. We the people of India. Okay. Supreme Court in Berubari Union case said that preamble is not part of the Constitution, but however Keshav Nanda Bharti judgment, Supreme Court overturned the previous judgment and held that preamble is very much part of the Constitution of India and can be amended under Article 368. Parliament can be amended. In S.R. Bommai judgment, Supreme Court held that preamble indicates certain basic structure. One of them is secularism, जो कि S.R. Bommai में बोला गया. I will discuss that, don't worry. I am giving you homework so that you can also elaborate upon that. Now, this highlights the Constitution of United States, or the preamble of US Constitution. See what it says: we the people of United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And the preamble explains the purposes of the Constitution and defines the powers of the new government as originating from the people of the United States. So even in the Constitution of United States of America, there is a preamble which takes power from the people of their country. Same, मतलब concept same ही है. Now their articles are divided into section, and basically their articles gives us a reflection of their complete separation of power. So see, section 1, all legislative powers granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States, which shall consist of Senate and House of Representatives. Senate is the upper house, House of Representatives is the lower house. Section 2, House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states. Now we'll discuss this, that how are these people chosen. So like in India we have, हमारे election कब होता है? Every 5 years generally, or if the government falls early, if they're not able to provide majority on the floor of the house, right? But in America, elections takes place every 2 years, both to the Senate as well as to their lower house and their upper house. But the presidential election takes every 4 years. So let's say in 2020 में हुआ था ना election. So in 2020 elections will take place to their both houses, House of Representatives and Senate. Now the president will remain the same in 2022, but the lower house and the upper house, based on the election outcome after 2 years, might change. But the president will not be removed, and presidential election will again take place in the year 2024, where again both House of Representatives and Senate का election होगा. तो Senate, House और Representatives के terms 2 साल के होते हैं. Clear? This can be asked this time based on your current developments. Okay. So it says the Constitution divides the federal government into 3 branches, giving legislative powers to bicameral Congress. So in a way, it provides for a strict separation of power. This provides for a strict separation of power. And the House of Representatives was intended to be the people's house. Its members were elected directly by the voters in the states, and the entire house would have to stand for election every 2 years. See this. It is mentioned in their constitution. Every 2 years. Don't get confused. Every 4 years लिखा रहेगा तो गलत हो जाएगा. Shanu, is that okay? Let's discuss all of this tomorrow. Before ending, okay, let's discuss all of this tomorrow. Let's conclude our session today. Okay, tomorrow Japan, procedure established by law, na Bharti? Yeah. Any other doubts so far? I hope you have enjoyed the class. I hope you have learned something today. And tomorrow let's start. Let's further discuss elements of preamble and association with fundamental rights and DPSP. Okay. Again, the idea is to go through as much as PYQs as possible, and in the process also solve some of the practice questions. Right. That's the idea behind these discussions. So today on the first lecture, I had planned to discuss some of the basic concepts, basic points pertaining to rights, political theory, concepts, etc. So that was the idea for today. Okay. Do revise. मतलब यही suggestion I will say, do revise, and Ayush, don't worry at all. I am giving these homework so that you are aware about what we will be discussing tomorrow, and I will give you all the details. Nothing to worry. Okay. Just focus on whatever we have discussed, right? So tomorrow, as per the schedule and as per the class details, आई एम टेलिंग यू टुडे, जो बच गया आज वो कंप्लीट करेंगे. आर्टिकल 368 विल ट्राई टू कंप्लीट, and also the type of majority we'll try to complete. Then we'll complete 2 chapters tomorrow, union and states and citizenship. क्योंकि देखो अभी SIR बहुत ज़्यादा न्यूज़ में चल रहा है. आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू आर अवेयर अबाउट स्पेशल इंटेंसिव रिविजन, राइट, है ना. सो हाउ इज सिटीजनशिप रिलेटेड टू SIR? व्हाट आर द पावर्स ऑफ इलेक्शन कमीशन? इलेक्शन कमीशन हम लोग उतना नहीं डिस्कस करेंगे, बट सिटीजनशिप के परस्पेक्टिव से डिस्कस करेंगे. आधार में क्या है, पासपोर्ट में क्या है, all of those aspects, right? Citizenship Act क्या कहता है, all of that along with the concept of union and states, right? हाँ, yeah. Okay then, thank you everyone. See you tomorrow. All the best. Any doubts? Please ask me. पूछ लो जल्दी से. Thank you. Okay, great. See you tomorrow.